Every year, my mother would send me like clockwork every summer down south to my grandmother's house, which was in Coburn, Virginia, deep south, right on the border of Tennessee and Kentucky. Beautiful place. I loved it. I would go outside, play with the chickens, run around, play with some pigs. But I would always come back in the evening, and there was a TV show that I loved to watch, and it was called The Lone Ranger. I would grab my chrome plastic 6-shooter, place it on my hip, climb onto my grandmother's bedpost, and ride like the Lone Ranger. In front of me was this man just riding this horse, this white guy, this masked avenger riding for justice. I wanted to be just like him. As time went on, I found out that this guy that was riding his horse, the inspiration for this guy was an old ex-black slave. And his name was Bass Reeves. Bass Reeves was the inspiration to the Lone Ranger. Bass Reeves was a lawman, a real lawman, for a total of 32 years, a United States Marshal with over 3,000 felony arrests, and killed 14 outlaws in the line of duty, all without being shot once himself. He overcame prejudice, betrayal, some of the worst criminals in Oklahoma, which was the most dangerous district in the country. Bass Reeves was born a slave in 1830s Texas. Bass was owned by Colonel Reeves when he was about maybe 4 or 5, something like that. And Colonel Reeves taught him how to shoot and ride a horse, but would not let him learn how to read. Bass grew up to be a strong, physical, impressive man, and in his 20s, he decided to escape, to make a long story short. He was pursued by slave hunters. He narrowly escaped them a couple of times and ended up in the Indian Territory where Creek Indian warriors accepted him into the tribe. Bass learned to speak Creek, Cherokee, and Seminole. It is believed that Bass also fought in the Indian Territory during the Civil War with the Union Indian Brigades. In 1875, Ulysses S. Grant, who was the president at that time, decided to start a program called Save Oklahoma because there was so much crime going on in Oklahoma. So he hired over 200 deputy marshals to calm, the growing chaos throughout the West that was kind of coming out of Oklahoma and also in the Indian Territory. Only like maybe 60 of them survived. I think 120 marshals had gotten killed, but not Bass Reeves. Bass Reeves had a reputation throughout the territory for the ability to catch outlaws that other deputies couldn't catch. He was known to work in disguise in order to get information and to catch these fugitives when they didn't expect it because, he's a black guy. Probably they thought he was a slave and he was grabbing them up. Bass is said to have arrested more than 3,000 people and killed 14 outlaws, all without sustaining, like I said before, a single gun wound. At 67, Reeves retired from service in the U.S. Marshal Service. He was a man that if he was fictional, he would be a combination of Sherlock Holmes, Superman, and of course, the Lone Ranger. And that's your black fact.
This is an old ass man versus a young ass man
podcast. Bass Reeves, your road to legacy black fact. Peace.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Road to Legacy podcast in season 2. We're excited because we have Ishana with us. We also have Evan with us. Ishana is a retired CEO from Rikers Island.
Rough.
Rough.
Gotta put the rough in. Sometimes we're gonna overlap.
Yeah, so we're excited to do this podcast. It's been a while since we relaunched, but we're back. And so, Ishana, please give us your first and your last name and let us know where you're from.
My first name is Ishana. My last name is Ruff. And this is my road to legacy. I'm from Queens. I'm from 164th and Jamaica Avenue, and 89th Avenue, by the Coliseum. I grew up in Queens my whole life.
So that's interesting. You grew up in Queens your whole life. Like, what was it like for you growing up in Queens? What was that like?
It was interesting. I grew up, unfortunately, in the crack era, and that was very difficult. Thank God I had my grandmother and my grandfather because they raised me along with my aunt because my mom had me very young. She had me at 14, but I'm not her only child.
Oh wow! So where was your father?
He was around. He lived over about 40 projects and 107th.
In Queens too.
Yeah, he was young too. So he was around. He participated.
Wow, what was that like growing up for you with like your grandparents? What was that like?
I thought it was the best thing ever. I mean, and it sounds crazy because I think everybody that grew up trying to survive in that time, and I thought it was the best thing ever, even though we didn't have a lot of money. You make pallets, you lay on the floor, you make your bed, and in the morning you roll it up, put it away, and it was the most comfortable bed that you ever had, but you was on the floor. And I remember when my grandmother, it was me and my cousin because we the same age. So his mom too. My grandmother had him too. I remember she bought us a high riser and the bed that pulled out the bottom. And we thought we hit the jackpot. We had our own closets and then we had our own bed. And it was great. You had to get up early. You had to go to school. You couldn't miss school. I remember it was a snowstorm. I told my grandma there's no school. She said, okay, well, get dressed, go to school. If they send you back, then you come back. But you had to go and find out yourself. She wasn't calling. She made you breakfast in the morning. She made you dinner at night. The kitchen closed at a certain time. The phone locked at a certain time. But you didn't feel like you was being tortured or anything. But she wasn't having it.
Was your grandmother considered like the disciplinarian figure in the household?
Yes. I remember, I forgot what I did, but I remember I did something. And I ran from her. And I ran under the dining room table. And she flipped over the table and beat me. I was like, oh my God, this old lady is crazy.
And strong as hell.
Yeah, it's strong. And I was like, how'd she do that?
Mm-hmm.
But she wasn't having it. The kitchen had no doors, and the fear of her, just you knew once the kitchen was clean, you couldn't go in the kitchen. So I said, oh, I'm thirsty. If you thirsty, you got to go in the bathroom, under the water, and get something to drink. That was it.
Yeah, straight up.
Yeah, you ate what was on your plate. You had to drink a glass of water before you drank juice. So I did the same thing to my kids.
And I do the same thing to my kids now too. So
Yeah.
that's how we grew up. But
Yeah.
that's interesting. Like, so I want to kind of jump into you becoming a correction officer, and like how did that happen? How did you get into becoming a correction officer?
Well, my aunts were correction officers, and one of them is a retired captain. One of them is a retired correction officer. My family members were on the job, and in order to become successful, that was the route to go. Either you went to the service or you went to correction. And you can't be scared because you grew up in the hood. So how are you scared? So I said, I don't want to go. My mother said, I paid for the test. You're going to go take the test and you're going to go. And
How old were you?
I was 27 because it took about 5 years for me to get hired. So I was 22 when I took the test.
Right. So from high school, when you graduated from high school, right, and till you became a correction officer,
Yeah.
that time in between, what were you doing? What were you thinking about? What were you worried that you may not find a job? Were you worried about being in the streets? What were you worried about?
I didn't want to go to college. I knew because I didn't want to be in school, but I knew I had to finish school. So I finished school, but I hated it so much that I went to night school and then I did co-op in the daytime. So
You mean high school?
High school.
Right.
So I could get out quick and I don't have so much classes.
But what did you hate about it? What did you hate about high school?
Because I was like an outcast. I had a lot of low self-esteem growing up.
Uh-huh.
And I didn't really fit in with the people.
Right.
You want to be like everybody else. You want the same hair they have, the same clothes. I didn't feel I was pretty. I remember my aunt always telling me, say, you're a beautiful girl. I don't know why you think you're not pretty. I said, but I don't have these clothes and I want those clothes. So she used to take me to the thrift shop. And I love the thrift shop now. I can't get enough of it. But she used to take me to the thrift shop. I had like all the name brand stuff. It was fun. And I used to start peeling labels off the clothes and put them on other clothes.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, so then people, oh, where you get that from? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I had it for a while.
Right, right. And during that time, did you feel, because a lot of, we speak to a lot of youth, and a lot of youth say, what am I going to do between that period? And some people, like I was one of those people who was in the military. The reason I went is because I didn't think that I was going to be alive at 27 years old. I didn't think I was going to make it to 27.
Yeah, it's hard.
How did you feel at that time? I mean, from that time to your career, I mean, what were you doing? Were you doubting yourself, or?
Yeah, completely. The whole time. I met a guy, and unfortunately, but I had my son, fortunately.
Right.
And I had my son at 19. And not too long after I got out of high school, because I graduated when I was 17. I got out of high school and I had my son. And my grandmother told me, this is your son, always. She used to say is mama's baby, daddy's maybe. So regardless of anything, it's always going to be your baby. So you have to make sure this child survives in the world. So now you got to calm down. You can't hang out as much. You got to be in at a certain time. And she wasn't watching no kids if you wasn't going to school or you wasn't going to work.
Right.
She used to always say, when I'm walking out, I'm not walking over you. When I leave, you're supposed to be leaving. So when I had him, I knew I had to do what I had to do. Before I had him, I got on public assistance. And on Sefton Boulevard, it was a freaking nightmare. I just hated it. And I knew that I couldn't do this for the rest of my life. I had friends that had kids, and every time they're getting ready to throw them off of public assistance, they was making another baby so they could stay on longer. I said, I can't do this. I don't want to do this. This is crazy. So then I started thinking about what I wanted to do. And I wanted to go to service. I wanted to go to the Marines. But when I had my son, they said I had to sign over custody to somebody. And it wasn't going to be his father. My grandmother was so much older, I didn't want to sign over to her.
Right.
Because I would have been the only person I would have given custody to. So then I couldn't do that. I had to find something else to do. So I always worked. Like I worked summer youth, because growing up, you had to work summer youth.
Like what kind of jobs? Like just summer youth, and what other type of jobs did you have?
You work in the camp, and I worked in A&S. So wherever my mom worked, she always made sure that could they hire me. So she worked, and I always did something for the summer. So I worked at Mediators in the city. I worked at Blue Cross Blue Shield over by the Cross Island Parkway.
Yeah, New York, right.
Yeah, I worked over there.
New York, right.
So I did all that little stuff for a little while. And then when I got older, then I worked in Home Depot. That was the job I had before I went to correction.
So in the back of your mind, was it correction in the back of your mind, or did someone introduce it to you? Like my brother was forced in there by his best friend. He made him take the test.
My aunts forced me in there.
Okay, and how did that happen? When you say you're working at Home Depot, and then what happened? You just...
Well, I took the test, and one day I'm at Home Depot. Correction called me and said, you start this day, and you got to quit your job. My birthday's December 5th, and I started correction December 7th.
Wow, 2 days after your birthday.
Yes, and you had to go. It wasn't a question that you didn't have to go, because you knew that this was going to be stability for you. You could retire in 20 years. I can have insurance on my own. I don't have to be on that stupid public assistance. I don't have to go to Sefton Boulevard for recertification. So it just was a better thing.
What was the first day, like after you got into corrections, you passed the job, and your first day on the job, what was that like for you, your very first day?
You were scared. Your first day you come there, they pass you the keys, and they tell you go do a count.
What is a count?
To count all the inmates that's in your house. You got to walk down a tier, which is the walkway where the inmates are, and the cells is on the right and the left. So you got to say, well, usually the females say female walking, because normally when you start walking, they should stop doing whatever they're doing. Because before you're walking, they're being fresh, they're beating their stuff.
Oh, really?
Standing there butt naked, waiting for you to come, because they want you to see them, and they want to, get off on you. So you say female walking.
That's interesting. So did you see people in the nude, like beating off as you were walking down on your first day?
Not my first day, but I've seen it. You say on the count, female walking, and you start walking, and you start counting. And you got to make sure the bodies are breathing, not somebody just laying in the bed because you don't want no dead body that you just accepted.
So on your very first day, doing this, announcing yourself, saying female walk-in and all of these things. So that means that you were in a facility with all males.
Yeah. I only work with the men. I never work with the females.
How is that distinction made? Like, is there someone who says, well, you're going to be with the men, you're going to be with the woman?
No.
It's just random.
It's like a random thing. Some people, it depends who you know. They hook you up and put you certain places. But when I first started, I went to NYc. My aunt was there. So she requested for me to...
What's NYc? What's NYc?
The North Infirmary Center. It's
okay.
For...
on Rikers Island, right?
Yeah, they in wheelchairs. They have handicapped beds. Some blind people are there. It's very interesting. They have an AIDS unit.
So they had you in NIC, and that was a safe place for you to be. You didn't have to really see.
Because I was going with my aunt. So I
hear you. I forgot you said that.
I went there, and I was like, okay. So I go in there. And that jail, too, when you go in there, it's an elevator. You ride the elevator with the inmates up, down, or whatever. And that was a little different because it's not something that you normally see on TV.
What, you said you ride in the elevators with the inmates?
Yeah, because they on different floors. So that jail that's the only jail that I've been in that had the elevator. I'm not familiar if the other jails have elevators, but I know 95 did not.
I'm trying to paint a picture and see what you were feeling like when you were in that situation. So even though you have family members working there already, and on your first day, like, what were your nerves like? You were afraid. What was going through your mind?
You're shaking in your boots. You scared.
Really?
It's so many inmates in there. And
really?
People think like when you go into a jail that the inmates is behind the bars, right? Or they're locked in, or you're outside the gate from them. You sit in there with them like y'all about to watch TV together. You right there with them because
that's close.
That's how Rikers Island is. Rikers Island is free movement because they're not guilty yet.
Right.
But, it's like Nassau and Suffolk County, they don't have that much contact. We have complete contact with them, like 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
And how long? Some people are in there for a long ass time.
And they're only supposed to be there for a year, but guys be there longer than that.
How long? How much longer have you seen people that you were in charge of?
4 years, 5 years, easy.
Damn.
Yeah, that's interesting. So for a woman working in an all-male jail, I'm curious, did that make you feel out of place because of that as well?
No, I wasn't out of place. I felt more comfortable presenting myself in that environment than I think I would have with women. But I was uncomfortable because it was too many of them. And then back then when I came in, they was all like big as the doorways and tall as the doorways because they was like coming from upstate or they just was bigger guys. And you like walking in and you like, how the hell are these people going to listen to me? What would make them listen to you? Because it's just you, your stupid flashlight, your 9/11 knife in case you cut somebody down, and you have this little body alarm. I didn't have OC when I started. That came later when I got OC. You have a stab/vest underneath your clothes.
Now what's OC?
Chemical agent.
Okay, so you couldn't spray nobody upside the head or nothing.
No, I didn't have it. You didn't have it then.
It wasn't even, you didn't have it at all.
No, I didn't have it. I never had it in the beginning. That came later on when we got it. So it's more of you presenting yourself in such a manner that they just won't do. And a lot of it came because they just had a certain amount of respect for you or a certain amount of respect for their steady or if people that they saw talking to you and they had respect for them and they thought that you was cool with that person, they wouldn't disrespect you.
So when you first started, did they have respect for you at all? Like you have family members and stuff in there. Did they respect you?
Well, when you first get there, you considered a rookie. So every 5 minutes, somebody calling you a rookie. You got your shiny shoes on because you came from the academy. So they keep messing with you, trying to see if they can irk your nerves or scare you half to death or whatever. But, you have to keep standing your grounds. They'll tell you, well, I'm going to do this. And you tell them they're not doing this. If you keep doing it, and you keep saying no and I'm not doing it, or don't disrespect me, don't speak to me like that, eventually it wears down and then they just fall back. That's what they did for me. They don't do it for everybody.
So, all right, let's jump a little bit, because I'm curious to know what you face. Like, what are some of the situations that you were in as a female CEO in an all male facility?
Can I intervene? Let me just ask one thing.
Go ahead.
This goes with what Donald's asking. There was a story. I had a friend that got a job at Rikers Island, female, and she quit like in a week. And the reason she quit is she said she was sitting in the pod or something and she fell asleep. And when she woke up, to make a long story short, she had this stuff all over her.
Oh, yeah.
It was sperm.
Yeah, I heard that story. I heard that story in Academy, though.
She said that all the inmates had actually, some way, while she fell asleep in the room or whatever, they jacked off on her.
She must have been knocked out. But one officer is inside the bubble. So the officer's inside the bubble like this, 2 doors on each side. And to the right, to the left is the control of the gates. Some housing areas are electric. Some housing areas are keys. So the person in the bubble, electric, they control the gate. The person behind the gate with the inmates, when it's not electric, has the keys and they control the gates. To let the inmates in and out their cell. Now, as an officer inside with the inmates at all times, that officer stays inside. That officer sits there and, that must have been what happened with her. She's sitting in there with them and she fell asleep.
So what happened to you? Anything?
I've never been that comfortable to fall asleep. When you first start correction, you do a rotation. The rotation goes, you only work 4 days in correction. Most people, they work 4 days, 2 days off.
Right.
So most people work 4 days. You do 7 to 3, then you do 3 to 11, your next 4 days, and then you do the midnight. I did that rotation one time. After I did that, I was like, I can't do this, because they could split you up in all those tours. So the 7 to 3, they can make you 8 to 4, 9 to 5, 10 to 6, and 11 to 7. The 3 to 11, they can split you up 4 to 12, 5 to 1. In the midnight, they can do the same thing. So you can have all these wacky tours, and some people love it. They be on the wheel for their whole career. I just couldn't take it. So I took straight 3 to 11s because that was the only thing they was giving out. Like when you first come in jail, anybody want 3 to 11? I said, yeah, I want 3 to 11.
I mean, during those shifts, what was one of the worst things that happened to you? What do you remember that happened that you were about to quit, where you said, yo, I can't do this shit anymore. This is ridiculous. What was it?
I don't want to sound crazy because I liked it. It sounds stupid. I know, because people be like, I haven't liked it. I did. I thought it was very entertaining because they be saying some of the craziest stuff to you, and you just be like, what? Once you get your bearings, then you just walk down the hall like you own the hallway. When you first walk in, you're hugging the hallway. When you get comfortable, you walking down the middle. So when you scared, then you over here. You got to pull yourself out of it. You got to walk down the middle. You got to own the hallway. And you have to tell them, walk straight. They walk past. And you see when the guys walk past, they're going to turn around because they want to look at your butt.
Right.
Now, you have to make sure that when they walk past and you eyeball them just like they eyeball you, and then they'll stop. Or if they say something, talking about you got a fat ass, then you got to tell who you talking to. And then I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do that, or whatever. But the minute you don't say nothing, it just keep coming.
Right.
Because
so you knew how to handle it. Basically, you feel that you knew how to handle
it because I always say that I was raised at the right time. So the people that was in correction when I came in, they was good people. They was great leaders. The people now aren't. When I came, people were willing to teach you and show you what to do. You go in there, you do your count. You say, I got 20, and the officer be like, no, you don't. Go back in and do another count. They wasn't telling you how many you got. They was telling you what you had to write in the log book. You have to go in there. You got to turn the TV off. You got to take the phones. You couldn't sit there and say, you know what? I'm scared. Let me go tell Officer G to go do it because I don't want to do it. I'm scared. Because the inmates know that you're scared and you don't want to do it.
When you say that, you enjoyed it, what gave you that comfortability, like working there? Like how did you become comfortable?
Once you figure it out and once you have the respect from the inmates, then it's like, oh, this is nothing. I could do this. And you curse somebody out and you're like, oh, he ain't doing shit to me. And he be big and he be popping shit. You be like, who the fuck you talking to? And then he be like, okay, this lady crazy or something. And then they fall back and you like, oh, this work. You know what? I'm going to take your PIN number. That's what I'm going to do. Because the PIN number's for the phone. You want me to take your PIN number and give it to somebody else? You call me another bitch and see what happened. Now, you ain't going to do it, but you have to use some leverage. I'm not going to let you go to commissary because I knew the people in commissary. So you're going to make sure that you do what you're supposed to do because you know I got some pull somewhere. Because like I say, you just in the housing area, it's just you. You ain't got no stick. You don't have nothing. It's just you. So you have to use the gift of gab in order to get over on these people because they got enough time to think all this stuff over and figure out how to manipulate you and how to get through to you because that's what they do. That's their angle.
So have you ever seen a situation where the CO doesn't get respected, like a man or a woman, but particularly a woman? Like, what were some of your experiences seeing that?
I had that mostly towards the last 5 years of my career because I don't know. I just they calling them all kind of fat bitches, the guys, and all kind of punk asses, and nothing's happening. Nothing's being said. And then I'm so used to saying something because that's how, like I said, that's how I was raised. And when I say that's how I was raised in correction. And when I say something to the guy, like, why you talking to him like that? And the inmate would go, Miss Ruff, you know I'm not disrespecting you. I'm disrespecting him. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. Let me mind my business because the guy ain't saying nothing. So why should I say something? Or the female ain't saying nothing. So why should I say something? Because I didn't get that. I got it to a point. I remember one time I was doing the mail and I'm in the West. AMKC has an outside facility, which is part of the West facility that they gave them. It holds 600 inmates. So I started to do the mail for outside. So I get the mail and I go outside, and you go outside to go inside to the housing areas. So I go in the housing area and I'm yelling for the mail, and the inmate said, suck a dick, bitch. Who's he talking to? Is he talking to me? Because all I said was the guy name to get the mail. So then I'm like, okay, he can't be talking to me. Whatever. So then I say it again, because you called the names to give them the mail, because you got to open the mail in front of them. So I called again, and he said it again, and I'm like, okay, enough of this. So now I put the mail down, and I go inside the housing area. And when I go inside the housing area, I said, are you talking to me? Did you just tell me, suck a dick, bitch? Is that what you said to me? So now he's just standing there looking crazy. He's not saying nothing. The other inmates is just looking. Everybody's quiet. So then I just walk out. I'm getting ready to walk out. So as I'm getting ready to walk out, he told me he's going to put bullets in me and kill me.
So, all right, I want to really get into like the diversity in the jail, because we interviewed two other correction officers, two male correction officers, and I had asked them a question about the diversity in the jail because, with media and just being Black, it seems that predominantly Black people are the ones who hold up the jail system, the mass incarceration of Black men and women. So you being on the inside, what was that like? Was there more Black people in jail than any other race? Black, white?
Everybody in there is Black, white, Jewish, Chinese. There's all kind of people in there. And a lot of them is in gangs. You be like so surprised. AMKC 95, it had mental inmates. They was under mental observation, so they was kept in a separate area. But years ago, when I started in the beginning, and for a while, they kept the inmates that was in the gangs together. And now they keep them separate in separate housing areas and everything, which makes it worse for the officers that have to work there.
So for those facilities where they had mentally challenged patients, I mean, we've heard numerous stories where they were abused by correction officers, just beat up or mistreated. What was your experience?
No, the mental observation inmates, they're very unpredictable. I mean, at any given moment, they just start swinging on you or hitting you or throw something at you or come run up on you, choke you out. I mean, because they just snap. So they have a lot of things for them that they do, like give them coloring books, and they give them more things that they don't give the general population inmates. But they're very unpredictable, and they like who they like. So like certain officers always work with those inmates because they would be able to talk them off the ledge in a sense.
So I was reading something earlier that said about 40% of the inmates at Rikers Island have been diagnosed with mental illness. Is that something that's true?
It is, but I think what happened by them closing Creedmoor, that was the problem. So now even the inmates that have psychological issues that not supposed to really be on Rikers Island, they wind up there instead of them being in Creedmoor because it's not there anymore. So everything comes to Rikers Island. Nobody
And
goes.
Creedmoor,
Yeah.
Creedmoor, for the people who don't know New York, Creedmoor is what?
The psych ward. It's a whole hospital for them, but it's not
Right.
there anymore. So
Wow.
now everybody's on Rikers Island.
Just to let everybody know, we have Evan Elkowitz with us as well. Evan is the one who introduced us to Ms. Ruff. I wanted to make sure I said your name correctly. That's why I kind of hesitated. And so, Evan, please ask any question that you have.
You know, since you were one of the only women in the men's ward, were you ever afraid of being raped or attacked?
Well, I wasn't the only woman. It's a lot of women working there. But when I first started, I said, that is definitely going to happen. They're going to drag me in a cell and they're going to rape me or do something because I just could not understand that I'm in here with these inmates and they just going to listen to me and not drag me in a hole somewhere or whatever. I just didn't, but it didn't happen. At that time, it never happened. And as the years went on, it happened.
Oh, it has happened to a CO?
It happened to a CO in my jail that she was inside the housing area with the MOs, the psychological inmates. She's inside the bubble, locked in, and then she had to let an inmate in because he came from somewhere. He went to a service or whatever. So she let him in, and now when you let him in, the door locks. Now you have to open up another door and let him in the house. The psychological inmates, they have more than one officer. Like even inside, they have more than one, but there's only one officer in the bubble. So whatever happened, because I wasn't there, he attacked her, and he had her inside the bubble. Now she's inside the bubble by herself with him, and she can't open no doors. She can't buzz a buzzer. She can't do nothing. At that time, everything was keys. So she has the keys. She can't let the officers out. She can't bring nobody in. She can't hit the radio, and he's choking her out. The other inmates see it from the windows around the bubble. They have this crisscross metal grate over the windows. Well, they really like that female officer. They broke the whole thing and made it open a small hole. This skinny little inmate slid through and scratched up his whole back and got the inmate and had him down on the floor. And then he called for help. He let the people out and he called for help. They let that guy out too.
They let him out.
They let him out.
Now, I have to ask this question. Now, was the guy a black guy?
He was a black guy.
And, we were talking about the ratio of black people in Rikers Island. How do you feel? Do you feel that, black people being incarcerated in the jail system in New York, you think that's overly done? You think it's too many people? What do you think? You think that it's over? I mean, there's a lot of black people in jail. What do you think about that?
It is a lot of black people in jail. But at the same token, I've been in jail for 20 years, and it's guys that I'm off on Saturday, Sunday that went home Friday, and by the time I get back Monday, they back in jail. It's guys I started my career with that wind up back in there 2 years later, a year later, and they always be like, oh, it's nothing, it's light, Miss Ruff, it's just a parole violation or whatever. But, like I always say, I'm not the judge and the jury. I don't care why they're there. I don't want to know why they're there. Because you have to be in the housing area with them so long, so many hours. You could be there 8 hours. You could be there 16 hours. I don't want to be knowing their business to that degree and be fearful my whole tour. If you find out they're a rapist or you find out they're a child molester, and let me tell you, those murderers, they be the nicest people you ever want to meet. You like, oh my God, this guy, he killed somebody? I mean, you don't even know that really happened.
Why do you think that is? That they're repeat offenders, like after they get out and come back? Why do you think that is?
You keep coming back to the same environment, that's what's going to happen. Because if you're known to get in trouble in a sense, like if you get in trouble in school once or twice, and then something happens, had nothing to do with you, the principal going to say you did it because you always the one getting in trouble. So now I feel that when people come out of jail, the environment needs to change because you need a new group of friends. You need a new area because you can't grow from what you was into a better person, keep staying at the same place. You just get stagnated. And then they don't give them no employment to try to do better, to want to do better.
Right.
Question, do you think there are any innocent people that are locked up in Rikers Island? And if so, what happens to them in the system?
They get swallowed up. You know, they be in the wrong place at the wrong time. They have bad friends just like anything else. But, you know, people want to be in the mix of what's happening and what's going on. And then they just get swallowed into something that they had nothing to do with. And it's just unfortunate. But, you know, my son is 28. And well, not now, but when he was younger, he wanted to be in the street. He wanted to hang out. He wanted to go all over the place. And he wanted to smoke weed in the street. And I tell him all the time, I said, you don't want to come where I'm working. I said, I'm not having that. And I'm not having it anyway. So I'm always on him. I always was behind him. I moved from Queens all the way out to where I'm living and now in Massapequa because of my son. My son was having such a hard time in school and all they want to do is suspend you. And all I do is make you more angry and frustrate you and it doesn't help. So if you already feeling like a failure and then school is treating you like a failure, you wind up doing things that'll make you into a failure. You don't want to succeed. You don't want to be a better person. So I took him out of there and I came out to Long Island and they did the IEP on him, to see what his learning disabilities. And they put him in BOCES. In Long Island, they have BOCES schools, which is all special ed schools. The school is for special ed. And that was like the best thing I could have ever did for him. They put him in that school and he graduated, but he started to get a grip of the work. He started to understand it. He graduated, thank God. And he started working at the Goodwill and he became a Goodwill worker and then he became a manager. And after that, then he started working at the post office where he works now. It's a constant thing with kids.
Raising kids. Yeah, you gotta do what you gotta do to raise them right.
They need you.
Was there a difference for you being locked down in Rikers Island and when you leave that facility? Was there a difference was there two different personalities or did you carry yourself the same way inside and outside?
I carry myself the same way.
Because
I'm always like this. I mean, listen, I go through things like anybody else. I feel like I always say I cry in the dark. So I cry on my way to work. If I'm going through something or I cry on my way home and I listen to some good music that make me feel better. But when I'm on my way to work and I'm getting ready to go over that bridge, I listen to my hood music because I like trap music. I listen to that, get me ready for war, and I just take it inside. And, you know, you got to be relatable with them because that's the environment that you're in. You don't let them bring you down to their level, but you have to be on their level to a degree in order to relate to what they're going through.
With that being said, the next thing I would kind of want to go into is sex in Rikers Island, like sex with an inmate. CEOs having sex with inmates and stuff like that. Like how does that, I mean, it sounds stupid to ask the question, how does it happen? But
because they're the master manipulators.
Yeah, right. But at the same time too, human nature, you know, you're locked down with somebody. It's kind of like, I've heard the saying that, you know, when you're inside, you are similar to a prisoner, like, because you kind of take on that role, right?
That's a bunch of junk. Don't fall for that. At the end of the day, out of Rikers Island, you're supposed to have a life.
But how does that happen? Like, let's say a female guard, a male guard, they end up having sex with an inmate. How does that usually happen? And do you know, or have you seen any situations like that?
I've never seen it happen. But when I had my housing area, this officer used to bring, I'm 3 to 11. So at 11:30, they already locked in. They lock in start by 10:30. They locked in by 11. So the officer worked in the clinic, and the officer used to always call for this inmate. Big inmate, nice looking guy, big guy. I'm like, why she always calling for this guy? Oh, he work in the clinic. Now he don't work in the clinic. I know you don't work in the clinic, but whatever. But something kept telling me like, yo, something is not right. So what I would do is I'll log it in my logbook, because your logbook is your Bible. So whatever you write in there happened. So I write in the book, officer such and such, picking up inmate such and such to work in the clinic detail, whatever. So I do that every time, every night. Come to find out, they arrest her because she's having sex with the inmate. I said, see, I told her, I knew something was not right. So she taking him in the clinic and she having sex with him in one of the rooms or wherever she having sex with him at. And she gets arrested. Now, when you have sex with an inmate, you are now a sex offender, because inmates cannot consent to sexual activity with you nor another inmate. I'm like, this is crazy. Or because you want to have sex with somebody, now you're a registered sex offender. That doesn't make sense. And there's so many officers on Rikers Island, man, woman, whatever, whoever you want, or outside. You can talk to anybody and you won't get locked up and you won't be registered as a sex offender. When you start the academy tell you, listen, if you're ugly when you get in here, you're ugly when you go to Rikers Island. So don't fall victim for the nonsense that they're going to tell you, because they are something else. You are the most beautiful thing they ever seen. Oh, you don't carry yourself like that. Oh, you're just the best thing I've ever seen. I'll give you the world. I have money in my account. And they be having a lot of money in their account. They be having $10,000, $5,000. And I thought it was a limit, but I guess it isn't. They send money home. They pay bills. They pay mortgage, rent, checks. You like, okay, what is happening here? Mm-hmm. But it's not my business. When I was raised in there, they tell you, come to work, get your check, go home.
Right.
Give them what they're supposed to have. They supposed to have the minimum standards. That's all you give them. They pull you in order to get things where they can get time taken off their sentence. If they get you, it's 1, 2, 3, and they get them. You got men that sleep with the women, get them pregnant. They wait for the baby to pop out and do a DNA test, and that's it. Fired, arrested.
And it's the inmate's baby? It's the inmate's baby?
Yeah, and the girl getting child support in jail.
What? Oh, you mean the inmate female is getting child support?
The female.
Wow. From the CO.
Yeah.
So that is crazy.
So I have to ask this question because you've been there for a long time. Have you ever came close to any situation like that?
No. I'm motivated by cash. There's nothing they can do for me. Nothing. There's nothing that ever tempted me for anything. And they come at you. I'm not saying they never came at me. They come at you and tell you this and tell you that and whatever. Who cares? It's not happening. We can't go on a date. We can't go to a movie. What, I'm asleep? I'm going to have sex with you in a slop sink. I mean,
See, Donald, the most scandalous stuff I hear from my family is not in the jail. It's on the outside of the jail.
It's on the outside.
It's with the COs together and the abuse.
Yeah, the abuse, right?
Infidelity. There's a lot of stuff because, what I've heard is that so many COs come home with so much stuff on their mind. Some of them that aren't like you, that come home with a lot on their mind and they take it home and they bring it home, or they get a girl on the side, another CO on the side, they get busted, they have babies. And I've had people in my family like that. So that are COs. But
we make our own bed. So I had an ex-husband and me and him was together and I thought he was the best thing ever. And it was the best thing ever. He cheated on me and I was hurt. It hurt me to my heart. It took me years to get over it.
Yeah, I know how that is.
At the same token, he did a crime. Come to find out, the feds came and arrested him one day. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? He got arrested because he was doing check fraud, making checks or something. But I had no knowledge of it. None.
Right.
He had a job. He was had an auto mechanic shop. And he said his grandmother left him money. But I said, listen, that's what happened. That's what it is. But he was always home. He didn't hang out. I was like, okay, whatever. Next thing you know, the feds came and took him and did 9 years.
Wow.
When they came and took him from my house, at the time, they said that, listen, you don't want to get involved. Whatever he's doing, he was doing way before you. I said, you're right. See you later. I don't do jail.
I hear you. I mean, I just want to go back to one thing that we were talking about earlier, and I want to ask Evan this situation. I mean, so Evan, what is your job? What do you do? Just briefly, just tell me, what do you do?
I raised 3 boys, which is like my hard job.
Right.
And then I'm a fashion stylist, so I dress men, women. I've done magazine covers, fashion shoots, and then I began 2-3 years ago leading tours to Cuba. I run a fashion and arts tour, and I host fashion shows in Havana. And my tours help everybody from the kids that have cancer in Cuba to the musicians, the artists. We do as much as we can for as many people as we can.
Right. So now you are friends, even though you have known each other for a while, but have known each other. We know the backstory, about the husband situation, all that. What makes you love Ruff so much, and what have you learned from her? What have you learned from her in talking to her for the last month or so? What have you learned from her strength and her power? And I'm asking both of you guys that question. Mm-hmm. First, you Evan.
I don't look at like people. I look at the world, and I don't generalize, anybody. And I feel like everybody that crosses your path, it's for a reason. So that day when I walked in and Ishana was sitting there, and I looked at her and I thought, she's so adorable and fashionable. And we met, we started chatting, and I said, what do you do for a living? And she's like, well, I just left Rikers. I was like, no way. And when she said that to me, I just thought, I got to talk to this woman. Like, she's got a story to tell, and I want to know it, because she looks like something completely different on the outside, but on the inside, she's got to be a beast. You know what I mean?
Right.
And by that, I mean, she's got to be like a fucking, excuse my friend, like incredible force. She's got to be a force to deal with a job like that.
Right. And you could see that.
Yeah, she's a lion, and I love intelligent women. I just feel like, smart women are funny women, and funny women are smart women. So there's something about just being with somebody who's intelligent that just, I enjoyed so much. I like to learn from people. And when I met Ishana, I just thought, oh, I'm going to learn from her.
What did you learn from Evan Ruff? What did you learn?
That women are pleasant. Because a lot of women don't embrace me the way she embraced me. I don't have girlfriends. I'm being very honest. My immediate girlfriend is my mom and my aunts or whatever, but she's pretty much the first woman that embraced me. And when I say, like, I meet people at work and they say hi to me and they hug me and good morning or whatever, but they outside of that, they don't invite me outside of that. They don't text me outside of that. And it was like a big deal for me to have had her present herself to me, to want to be my friend like that, and to want to hang out with me, and to want to just get to conversate with me and hear what I had to say. Because I said to her before, I said, we as women, we always given so much of ourselves as being the mother, the father, the kids, the job, the everything, that at what point do we get to lean on somebody? And I say that because I always have to hold everything in to a degree. And then I have to deal with it on my own terms by myself, because I feel like I can't pop and give it to somebody, because everybody can't handle that, especially men at the time.
I just want to say this one thing. It's that the reason I brought that up, Evan is a beautiful, white, Jewish woman.
Yes. Jewish
right?
woman.
Ruff from Long Island. Are you from Long Island? Are you from there?
Long Island.
No, it's Long Island.
Long Island. Yeah, both from Long Island.
And Ruff is from, where are you from again? Where's it from again? You're from what borough?
Jamaica, Queens.
You're from Queens. Jamaica, Queens, right? And Ruff is black, right? So the reason I bring this up is because so many people, and totally different jobs. Ruff was working in a correction facility with inmates hardcore for 20 years.
It was love at first sight.
Right. So my point is that you have these two powerful women that are talking to us about Rikers Island, which Evan brought, And I think that is just such a blessing that you girls, you ladies, girls, that's, you know, I'm old school.
Yeah.
I'm a little old. Like Donna always calls me the
It's okay.
old part of
We're girls. We'll take
Girl,
it.
that's the girl.
you ladies have such a beautiful relationship, and that's also part of this conversation. Yes, we are talking about Rikers Island and what's going on in Rikers Island and how Ruff really made it through those 20 years and what people should know in the future, but it's also about relationships. And the reason why we come together on the road to legacy like this is because we want to use our relationships to inspire. What else, Donald? What are we doing to inspire? What else?
Influence and educate people.
And educate people. So that's one of the reasons I brought up. And that's one of the reasons why Evan is sitting in this conversation. It looks like a Brady Bunch on our
Right now, we're the Brady
here.
Bunch view.
And then we
Brady
got,
Bunch view.
we got the one Jewish sister down there in her bedroom.
She's chilling. She's chilling right now.
Yeah, she's chilling hard. She's chilling hard.
I'm hiding from my children.
I know we have to wrap up soon. I have so many more questions that I want to ask and things that, that I was researching a little bit about that I wanted to kind of get to.
We're going to have to do a part two.
Yeah, we can definitely do a part two. I want to close and just kind of ask about this, Ruff, because in the last few years that you were in corrections, you worked in the facility where people do visitations and stuff like that.
Yeah, I worked in a visit area. That was my last job inside there before I left, and I liked it. I like the kids.
Yeah, it was a beautiful thing, and I was just reading a bunch of a few things that I saw about like the lawsuits for the strip searches and stuff like that.
The visitors, when they come inside the facility, they have to get searched. Some of them act like the inmates and they hide everything up there behind. And women, they hide it inside their vagina. But you are not allowed to strip search them. Now, you are to make them pat themselves down. So as far as them being strip search, that wasn't something that the people were supposed to be doing to them. So it got so out of control that they put cameras all inside the visit. Because of it, they put it in every jail. They put it in the main building where you register at. There was cameras everywhere, and believe it or not, even after the cameras, and then the camera on you, people were still doing it, and that's when all the lawsuits came up. And then they had the evidence, and you brought that on yourself. But you take the person behind a curtain, a partition, take their ponytail out, run their fingers through their head. They used to have wigs, and if they have the wig on, and they could take it off, make them take it off. Because they hide drugs inside the wig. They tape drugs inside their bra, so they had to pull their bra away from their skin and shake it out. But they would hold the drugs like this to the bra and then pull it so it wouldn't drop. You had to make them flip the bra a little bit, but not showing their skin. You got to make them take their fingers, go around their waistband because they have stuff stuck to their waist. Take their socks off. Look at the bottom of their feet. It wasn't a strip search, but it was similar to a search in a sense with an inmate because they're very manipulative. You got to look in between their fingers. They will say they had to go to the bathroom after you search them because they're thinking if they run to the bathroom real quick, pull out their drugs from being in them so they could have it at the front. So once they sit down, the inmates will put their hands down their pants and pull it out.
I've heard of guns being smuggled in there also.
I heard that too, but I wasn't there at the time. But my partner that I worked with, he said that did happen. They would have a lot of sex on the visit.
Yeah.
Where did you do that?
Right?
You sat on the sink, on the slop sink.
No, in the visit, they would just be in the open having sex.
Straight right there in the visiting room?
Yeah, when it's time to do a get up, usually you get up, the inmates go first, then the visitors next. But sometimes you do a get up and they get up, and they used to wear mini skirts, but they made them stop doing that. They wear mini skirts, no drawers. So they flip the girl around and start having sex with her. It don't take long because, it's been a minute.
You're right.
And they was doing that, or they sit on a chair, and before it wasn't a table in between them. So it was a little, the little kid table, a little round, colorful table. It was colorful chairs. So they sit down, they bend over to the inmate jumper was Velcro. They unvelcro and start sucking them off.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you go over there. Like,
human nature.
You're like, hello. You tapping them, telling them to stop. And they they finish doing what they doing and they tell you they got to hold their man down. So then they would get booth visits. They would only have visits behind the partition. They go behind the partition. They stand up on the thing and they taking their clothes off and shaking their butts and, you know.
In 20 years, I know you've seen a lot.
Come out smiling. She coming out smiling, dressed in yellow. With a yellow band on her head looking good. After all that stuff, shoot, I'd be coming out looking crazy.
Yeah, you just be, I don't know, you just like, this is some sick shit.
That sounds like you need to write a book or do a movie or something, a series.
She needs a reality show. That's a reality show.
Yeah, and you know what? The part is that when you start talking about it, then you start remembering bits and pieces of it. Like, it's difficult for me to explain it to you just off the rip because it's like a process of me trying to explain everything. I have to remember this and then that. And then you're like, oh, shoot, remember this happened? And like, you know.
So, like, before we close out, like, how do you kind of unpack your mind from all of the things that you experienced in the 20 years that you worked in Rikers Island? Because you've seen a lot, even though you enjoyed it. You know, and fun and all that. I know there had to be some low times of things that you saw. You was like, yo, this is crazy. Or were there any times that you were like, you know what? And Martin asked you earlier.
The whole time is crazy. It's some days that aren't, but it's a lot of days that are. Like I always say, they pay us a lot of money to do something and a lot of money for days not to do something. Because there's some days you don't do nothing. You just be sitting there chilling. But then some days you really got to be like, working hard, running back and forth, got to curse somebody out, throw them out your house, pack them up, break up a fight. Like it's different factors. You don't know what you're going to walk into. But for me, like I said, I like trap music. I really like trap music. I think like I'm a teenager or something. I don't know. But I listen to that and I pray all the time. I pray going in. I pray coming out. I pray in my car. I pray before I go to sleep. And I always pray for, my mother always told me pray for my sanity. So I pray for my sanity constantly just to maintain. And then my son, I have a daughter too. My daughter's 18, but my son, I could be going through something and he hugs me and it's just like I fall apart. He became like my backbone mentally to let me like release. So it came a point that he Mom, I'm not hugging you because if I hug you, start crying, I'm not hugging you. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. But it wasn't a bad cry. It was a good feeling. Like it's something that when he hugged me, it just made me feel like a better person.
Appreciation.
And now I could do it again. And, you know, and he motivated me to keep doing it. He motivated me not to quit.
And how old is your son?
He's 28 now.
Oh, wow. Wow.
He did that whole run with me. You be raising kids over the phone. My mom lives with me because I don't know how people don't, you know, have somebody living with them because you got to get up and go to work or you could get stuck. So I'm not going to keep packing my kids up and moving them from one place to the next.
Right.
My mom lived with me. If my mother couldn't do it, then I had to pack them up and go to my grandmother's. But if my grandmother had to watch them, I'm packing me up, the kids, and I'm sleeping over there for the days that I got to work because I didn't want to move my kids back and forth so much. I had blankets in my car, pillows in my car, but I have to be involved. They're my kids. Right. I don't know nothing else. Like people be on that job and they be sending their kids down south to their family members because they can't do this Rikers Island and take care of their kids. We as women, we are strong people. We are strong creatures. So my grandmother had 7 kids. You can't tell me that you can't take care of no one kid. They'll transfer their kid down there with their mother or their aunt or whatever, and then they get with a new man and have a new kid and have that kid. So their priorities is all over the place. I don't have respect for people like that.
Yeah.
And I said this a few times already. I know we were supposed to wrap up. So I have to ask both of you ladies, how do you feel about the Black Lives Matter movement? This is the first question. And the second question is, I don't know if you ladies heard about Casey Goodson, who was killed recently, yesterday, in fact, by police in Columbus, Ohio. And so I want to know how you ladies feel about the Black Lives Matter movement and police killing Black people on a regular basis. If you have an opinion about that, I want to know what you think.
The Black Lives Movement is a great thing because I think it's uniting different cultures together now. that it wasn't doing that before, because people are so segregated and, whatever the nonsense is going on. So it's a good thing. But what was happening, that with all the vandalism and the looting, that part of it, I wasn't in agreement with. I didn't like that part of it, because it's not doing anything but making their environment worse. As far as the cops killing the Black people all the time, it's a bad thing. It's not a good thing in general. But I think the problem with it is that a lot of white cops don't come from the hood. They don't come from the ghetto. So their natural reaction is to react in a negative fashion when they approach somebody. Because when I go to Jamaica Avenue, I'm on alert like I'm in jail. Because when I'm home, it's not like that. But when I go up there, now I'm feeling like I'm stereotyping the public. So I could kind of like understand where they're coming from, not as far as killing them, but as far as their reactionary measures. Because I think that back then the cops used to be people of where we lived, people we knew or somebody. Now it's so much people coming to the city, they don't know how to relate to certain things and certain people.
Right. And let me tell you, in Queens, it was like that because most of those cops came from Long Island. But where I grew up in Harlem, it was different. It was like, the cops didn't come from, and the Bronx and Brooklyn, the cops didn't come. Brooklyn, too, had a lot of Long Island cops. But the cops from Harlem and the Bronx, they were mostly Long Island and Nassau County, part of Long Island and all that stuff. And it was so unfortunate because, like you said, they were afraid all the time. I don't think, that's why I asked you the question, both of you guys, a question about how y'all felt about each other, because I know for a fact that, and I say it for a fact because it was written in the Constitution for a moment, that we was, 3/4 of a human being. And I think that came through the fiber of America, where they don't see African Americans, they don't see Black. I keep saying African Americans because we were the beginning to go through all of this, but they don't see Black people, not every cop. The cops that murder and decide to choose homicide, they don't see you as a human being. That's why that guy can kneel on George Floyd's neck that long and look at a camera and know that, they don't see Black people of color, mostly Black Americans, I have to say that, as human beings. And I think that's one of the problems until they change the laws where some of these guys will get locked up when it comes to, what's the law, Donald, the Emmett Till anti-lynching bill, and what's the other one?
The other one is...
what is it? Once they get those laws on their chance. But Evan, how do you feel about that question of Donald?
I'm not African American. I mean, I'm Jewish and white, but I'm not privileged. I worked my whole life, literally since I was 12 years old. I had a job until literally I got pregnant, I got laid off. And then, I took a little time and then I went back. But my point is, what do I think about BLM? I think BLM is a good thing. I agree with Ishana. I feel like all the violence behavior and the looting and the stealing, I see there's frustration. But I don't think, doing things like that is going to help. I think, like I said before, it comes from the home. It comes from the home. It comes from home. It comes from how we raise our children. And I feel like people are talking about what we're learning and work, different companies now are doing these workshops. If you don't teach it to your children, if you don't learn it at home, if you don't have a feeling for human beings, then you're not going to all of a sudden be able to tolerate. Like in Cuba, there's so much racism. I mean, the darker Cubans, the light-skinned Cubans look down on the dark-skinned Cubans. And I have friends, a lot of my friends, and they'll say to me, I was dating a darker-skinned Cuban and my grandmother wouldn't talk to me anymore. And then the dark-skinned Cubans who are my friends will say to me, well, I was dating a light-skinned Cuban and her mother, so it goes on everywhere, unfortunately. And it's sad. It's very sad. It's very sad.
It's interesting, because unfortunately in society, when you have a different pigmentation or darker color skin, you're treated so differently. And, there is
in the Black race.
Of course you get the Black heart. And, unfortunately, there is a difference in treatment. So in closing, so I brought up Casey Goodson, right? Who was a legal gun carrier. He had his license to carry a firearm. And I don't know if you ladies heard the story. This is literally fresh, less than a week ago. He was on his way home from a dentist appointment. There was reports of someone who carried a firearm. They were showing it out the window, and police officers followed this man to his home. In his hand, he had Subway sandwiches in the right hand, and he had his keys in the other. They shot him 3 times in the torso, killed him. A few days ago in Staten Island, there was a guy by the name of Danny Priesti. I think he's Italian.
The bar situation.
A bar situation, right? It was it's called Mac Public House. Long story short, police chased him. He ran from the police, ran into his car, and literally tried to run over the police. He wasn't killed. He was arrested and then released without having to pay bail. 2 different human beings. One is dead. One is alive. And so, unfortunately, we still are dealing with the issue of race. And this ties back into the relationship that you ladies have together. And the great thing about it is there is a silver lining where we are starting to communicate and try to look past a color. But the privilege, unfortunately, does exist when you have a lighter skin color versus a darker skin color. And this will be a whole nother conversation. But the blessing in all of this is our job, Martin and my job, and you ladies' job as well, is to constantly have these uncomfortable conversations. Mm-hmm. And, we started with you, Ruff, working in Rikers Island, and what that experience was like for you, which is really, really important because our biggest podcast was about Rikers Island, and people want to know what happens on the inside. And so far, we've had perspectives from 2 different correction officers, from a male perspective and a woman's perspective. From an inmate's perspective, it's very, very different. And we know that the laws now seem to be protecting the inmates more than the correction officers.
Yes.
And so I think that we will continue this conversation, because we can continue tonight. And I tell you, honestly, we will probably be here for another hour or so. There's so many things to unpack and ask about. But I just want to say, in closing, I want to say thank you to both of you ladies for giving us your time. Ruff, thank you for giving us your inside experience on what it was like as a woman to work in Rikers Island. And there's still so many things that I want to ask, but I don't know how much longer people will tune in and listen to the podcast, to be honest.
Right, and we have to edit this.
We got to edit all of this. And then, Evan, there's a lot of questions that I have for you as well. So this is not the... Yeah, we're going to do a part 2, because Ruff, I really would love to do a podcast with you or another correction officer and an actual inmate, and have a dialogue back and forth to see the 2 different experiences. I think that would be incredible.
I ain't scared. Okay.
No,
that'd be so interesting.
Right? I'll be like, what you got to say? I hope it's somebody I know.
Maybe you may know them. There's a possibility.
I know.
I want to say, ladies, before we go, I need both of you to say, what do you want your legacy to be?
I would like my legacy to be, I want to be known for making a change in the world. I want to be known for making a difference and for thinking outside the box. And, I think globally. I don't think racially, and I don't think internally. I think globally. I think about humanity. And I want my legacy to be that I showed my children that you can do anything you want to do, and you can make a change in the world. And it doesn't have to be a major change, but just even a little dent that I'm making in Cuba, a little Jewish girl who doesn't speak any Spanish, working with a communist country. You know what? Awesome. And you know what? My little change makes a big change. And you know something? That's what I want my legacy to be.
All right.
Ruff. I want my legacy to be that I'm open-minded to loving everybody. I want people to stay more positive about themselves and about life in general. Always look at the glass half full, not half empty. Because from where I was and to where I'm at now, that's why I don't feel down about myself, because I came a long way from where I was to where I'm at. That's all.
All right. That's beautiful. And ladies, thank you for joining us again. This was the Road to Legacy podcast, season 2. This was great. You can go to our Instagram page, which is Road to Legacy podcast. And you can also, if you want to buy merchandise and continue to help support us, you can go to roadtolegacy.shop and you'll see some of the merchandise that we have. I want to thank again our guest, Ruff. I need to say Ishana Ruff or Renee Nixon may be your mom, so I won't say that. I want to say thank you to Ishana Ruff and say thank you to Evan Elkowitz for being with us today. And of course, my man 50 Grand, Martin Small, light-skinned Black Republican. Thank you, Doc. You know, this has been great.